This is the start of my GraphQL JWT authentication series. Now I'm going to assume you know how to set up a GraphQL server and connect it to a database and say register a user. If you don't already know that, then I'm going to link below a video that shows you how to do that. So I'm basically going to start from an existing GraphQL server, very simple version of it, and then we're going to add JWT authentication to it. Now in this video we're not going to be doing any coding, but I'm going to be showing you an overview of the method that basically the method that we're going to use to do refresh tokens and JWTs and how it's all going to work, just an overall picture. So to start off with, I want to talk about what we're going to store in the database because we're going to add an extra column on our user. And this extra column is a count field. You can maybe call it a reset count or a refresh token count, something like that. But this is basically the version of your token that is live and that people are using. And it's going to be unique per user. This will make more sense in a second though. And where I wanted to start is how we're going to actually give people tokens. So when someone logs in to our app, they're going to be sending us maybe an email, a password, and we're going to validate that. And if it is valid, we are then going to send back a token. Well, actually two tokens, a refresh token and an access token. So both of those are going to be JWT tokens. The refresh token is going to be a long-lived token, meaning you want this to span maybe a week, maybe a month, maybe a year. Depends on your application how long you want to last for, but this is how you know the user is logged in, and that you want to make sure stays on the user. Now the access token, this is totally fine if it expires, goes away. It is short-lived and is mainly used to not have to hit the database to see who the user is. So this access token is going to be something that lasts maybe 15 minutes or something, and then inside both these tokens we're going to store the user ID, and then in the refresh token we're going to store the current count that the user has in the database. So the very beginning the count's going to be 0, and so all the refresh tokens that user logs in, say they log in through the app and they log in through the website, we're going to send back the refresh token with a count of 0 and its data. The other thing to note is I'm going to be implementing this where we send it back as a cookie, well really two cookies. So on the user's browser we're going to store a refresh token cookie and an access token cookie. And then on every request that they send, say they want to view a profile or something, we can grab both the refresh and access tokens that are going to be sent up to the server, and we can, without touching the database, we can see the user ID associated with the user making the request based on the information in the token. Now this is where it gets interesting. What happens when our access token expires? Say it's been 15 minutes or however long we specified. So this is what's going to happen when we send an expired access token to the server. Now if the refresh token is valid, then we are going to go about refreshing it. If the refresh token is not valid, say it's been that week, it's been that month or year, then we just say the user is not logged in. We basically treat them as an unauthenticated user. You can either redirect them to log in or do whatever you want with them. Otherwise, we're assuming they have a good refresh token, but an expired access token. So what we're going to do is we're going to fetch the user from the database, and then we're going to compare the count. So the count that we have stored in the database and the count that is in the refresh token. And if they are equal, that means the refresh token is valid and has not been invalidated. And then we are going to give them a new access token and send that back in a cookie. Now the other thing about this is the access token / refresh token is going to be validated against a secret too, because it is a JWT, and so that makes sure that no one else forges tokens or whatnot. Alright, so how are we going to actually invalidate these tokens? So let's say someone resets their password or an account gets hacked. How can we invalidate the sessions or the tokens that we give out to individual users? And this is where that count comes in. So let's say I forget my password, and when that happens, we want to basically log out the user from all the different sessions because they've changed their password or something. Whatever we want the event to be, what we're going to do is we're going to hit the database and we are going to increment the count of this. So what that does is the next time any of the user has to refresh their token, it's going to see that the count has incremented and is different than the count that is in the refresh token, and it's going to treat that as an invalid token. So basically that is the method that we're going to be using to invalidate tokens. And this is kind of nice because you can see on each user how many times they have invalidated all their tokens as well. And again, this is going to be on a per user basis, the count, so it only invalidates your own tokens. But that's the gist of it. So the other thing to note about this is as soon as we increment the count, as long as the access token is valid, we're not going to hit the database and check whether the count has changed. So for 15 minutes or however long you set your access token for, the user will still be logged in after, say, they forget their password and somewhere else. So that's something to note. So if you want that number to be really small, maybe a minute of delay or a minute of it being invalid information or being cached, you can choose how long. But for most websites, most types of applications, say 15 minutes, half an hour or something is a totally fine amount of time of a delay for the user to check whether the token has been invalidated. Anyway, so that's what's going to happen is they send up their access token, we see it's expired, we go check the database against the count, and we see the refresh token is invalid, and then we say, hey, you need to relog in. And so that is how the flow of our JWT authentication will work with refresh tokens.